Welcome to episode 93 of Broad Street Hustle. One of the benefits of not being one of the top podcasts on Apple, Spotify is we could say it's the Super Bowl. We don't have to use big game, right? We could say it. Super Bowl, somebody help me. It's a bunch of Roman numerals.
58.
Jimmy? 58. Super Bowl 58. This is our big preview show. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to give our predictions, our scores. We're going to talk players. We're going to talk props, tons and tons of props. Let's jump into it. I got Jason Santa back, as well as I am back, as we both missed last week. Jason.
Hey, Tom. What's up?
How are you, Jason? We got Jimmy the Chalk.
Hello again.
And we got Christopher Michael Meeker.
Welcome back.
Welcome. So we are going Super Bowl, but quickly, and I mean quickly, Sixers made some deals today. It was the trade deadline. Nothing outrageous, but some deals. Any quick thoughts, Jason, on what the Sixers did?
I think he cleared a lot of cap. It sounds like he's looking to sign Kyle Lowry once he gets bought out. So I think that's why they traded Beverly and guys like that. And then Hield will help score while Embiid's out. He's nothing more than a shooter. He's not going to do anything defensively. He's really not going to create. I guess it's an okay move. You really didn't give up anything for him. So I think a lot of what they did is just kind of creating space for next year. Off season.
Yep. How about Chalky? Quick thoughts.
Yeah, I mentioned it quickly last week, but they were in a tough spot in the sense of you can't push your chips in all year because you don't know what Embiid's going to be. And then, but you have some pieces that you could trade this year. So Hield is an upgrade. I'm interested to see if it is Lowry because Dinwiddie's name that might get bought out too that they might go for, but Lowry seems like a name they have targeted. But Beverly getting moved did surprise me because he seemed like a nice glue guy. But it's all going to come down to if Embiid can get back before the playoffs and be somewhat healthy.
Meek?
Yeah, I just kind of agree with Chalky. I guess they didn't punt the season because they did make some moves to improve the team, even though Embiid's not going to be back for however long, 4 to 6 or 8 weeks or whatever. But I had been kind of clamoring for Hield, if you remember some comments I made in some previous podcasts. I think it's a position that they needed, and they got it. I would love to see him play with Embiid. Hopefully we'll get to see that in the meaningful games towards the end of the year. But it all comes down to whether or not, they can toe the line until he comes back. And they have a pretty tough schedule coming up, so it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it seems like they just pieced some things together to score while Embiid's out and then see what happens when he's back. But really next year, as we say a lot with the Sixers, next year is going to be the year that they have $60 million in cap space and all that so they can go out and maybe do a little bit more. All right, we'll talk more next week, of course, as the NFL will wrap up and we'll have Phillies and Sixers to talk about. But let's get into it. Let's get into the big game, the Super Bowl. We're going to jump into predictions. We'll talk the game and then end with prediction thoughts. Jason, why don't you kick us off? You weren't on last week. Anything, I guess, from the championship games, these guys did cover it, but any thoughts that carry over to this Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'll give two quick synopsises. So, you would ask me in episode 91, what would Lamar Jackson have to do to prove to me that he could win a Super Bowl? And I had said, I need him to be down 2 scores. I think I said 2 touchdowns, but 2 scores with 10 minutes left in the game, and he's going to have to prove he could throw the ball. Well, he was down 2 scores with 10 minutes left in the game, and he proved he couldn't throw the ball. He's making mistakes, throwing in the triple coverage in the end zone. I think Monken's game plan was to prove that Jackson could throw the ball. I think that failed miserably. I think Spagnuolo did a great job with blitzing him. You blitz Jackson, obviously he can't handle the blitz. And I think Kelce had a great game. Kelce so far in the playoffs has been great. So the That's basically what I thought in that game. I mean, listen, the Chiefs' offense is still anemic. They scored no points in the second half. Offense is still a problem. Their defense is good. Mahomes, everybody's going all crazy because he was 12 for 12 and this and that. Nobody calls him a check down Charlie, but check out where all his passes are. They're like 5 yards down, from the line of scrimmage. Like, he checks down more than almost anybody. And I'm not taking anything away from him. He's great. But, let's call it like it is with his 12 for 12s and everything like that. And
yeah, he appears to be. He's playing this season with the thought that his defense is the better side of the ball, and his job is to not make the mistakes, move the ball when they have, change the field position, and he does a great job at it. But yeah, it's not the explosion that we've seen in the past.
Right. And then I just want to throw in the luck factors. I know that's going to be brought up with the 49ers and Lions, but Chiefs got a little lucky too, and the guy fumbled on the half-yard line. I mean, that's a big play there. And Flowers totally botched that whole possession.
That was a bad possession.
Bad possession, but call it like it is. They got a little lucky themselves. Real quick with the 49ers game, I know Campbell's going to get all the blame, and he deserves some for sure, but that's the way he coaches. He coaches like that all the time. That's how they got as far as they did. So eventually it's going to come back to haunt them. They dropped passes. So it wasn't totally Campbell. I mean, Reynolds was terrible. He dropped a bunch of passes. And then, I hear a lot of criticism of the 49ers defense, and I'm right there. And if you look at both games, first half their defenses were bad. Look at the second half of both games. They really tightened up. And I don't hear anybody mentioning that. You got to give them credit in the second half of both of the games. And then Purdy. Purdy made plays when he had to. I mean, he got lucky with the ball that hit the guy's helmet and then bounced to Ayuk. And then Ayuk broke up a ball that might have been intercepted. But he throws up 50-50 balls because he trusts Ayuk. He trusts Debo, So that's going to happen sometimes. But he made plays with his legs. He made throws in the second half. Everybody says they got lucky. They should have lost. They should have this. They should have that. Maybe, but Chiefs got lucky too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't here last week as well, but I mean, pretty much said everything. The one thing stood out, Purdy with his legs. That was one of the big things you pointed out going into the game. That Detroit, that they struggle with quarterbacks like that, and whether it was conscious game planning, not set plays, but hey, if you get the opportunity, because Purdy did use them. There was a big third down in the fourth, I guess, that solidified the game that he did it, and other plays. And then the Baltimore, I mean, Jackson, he was bad when they weren't trailing. I mean, he was bad in the first quarter. But I will say the play where he threw it and caught it himself, I mean, that was insane play. Yeah. I didn't even see him. He just flew through.
He almost scored.
I mean, it was insane, but I mean, that's what he does. He makes plays like that, but he's not a good quarterback. But I'm not going to continuously go on. Give you a little bit of a break. We'll let Chalky kick us off with the actual Super Bowl talk.
Yeah. So, I mean, Mika and I sort of previewed it a little bit last week, but Kansas City's, strength on the offensive side of the ball has been in the first half in the playoffs thus far for the most part, and their defense is lockdown teams in the second half. San Francisco's offensive struggles have been in the first half, and the switch gets flipped in the second half. And Jason said, although I think defense gave up a couple touchdowns against Green Bay, the fourth quarters especially. And they have some drives against Detroit too, but their fourth quarters, the defense is kind of locked in and have shut teams down to give the offense a chance to turn it around, and the offense is taking those opportunities. So it'll be interesting to see if the scripts play out as they had been. Is the Kansas City defense good enough to hold off a San Francisco comeback if it comes down to that? I mean, I think if they're in that situation, there's certainly a much better defense than either of the two teams that San Francisco has had to play so far. In general, I didn't think their offense would have struggled so much early in the first two games because I think, at least three of us predicted blowout wins, and that hasn't materialized. I just don't think they're going to struggle for 3 straight games that much in the first half. So I kind of see it playing out similar through at least 3 quarters as to when they played a couple years ago in the Super Bowl. It'll be a close game in the first half, tied or 1 score at halftime. I think the third quarter, San Francisco opens up a little bit, gets a 2-score lead. And then in the fourth quarter, Kansas City starts charging back, but I think Kansas City falls short this time. And I'll say, if you want to score, I'll give you 27-23. San Francisco ends up winning the game. But this is the best defense Kansas City has had in any of these games, but probably their worst offense. I mean, Jason was talking about the checkdowns. He doesn't have a receiver that you can rely upon to get open down the field and actually catch the ball, I think. So I don't know if it's just that he doesn't trust his guys or they're not getting open or whatever. But it's a familiar matchup, but it's a little bit different setup for at least the Kansas City coming into this game.
All right, Meeker, how do you see the big game?
So I approached tonight with just kind of writing down some keys to the game for both sides. And, you guys can kind of chime in whenever you want to. And I'll start with Kansas City first. So for Kansas City, I think they have to hold McCaffrey under 75 yards rushing, which I know is easier said than done because the Niners are 12-1 when McCaffrey runs for over 75 yards. I think that's a tall task to keep him under 75 yards, but I think that's one thing that they're going to have to do. I think they have to scheme defensively to pressure Purdy without the blitz because, Casey, as they shown last week, they were successful with the blitz and they have a pretty stout defensive line who gets pressure with the blitz. But Purdy has an extremely high quarterback rating, and I'm sure Jason knows this, against the blitz. So they'll have to scheme a little differently in this week against San Fran and win the battle at the line. You want to talk about that, Jay? Because I know you have some stats on that or had in the past.
I know. I mean, he's number 1 in the league against the blitz. So, Spagnuolo's big thing is blitzing. And when I get into my points, I think a lot of the strengths of the Chiefs are negated by, the strengths of the 49ers, and a lot of the weaknesses of the 49ers, the Chiefs aren't the greatest at. But Spagnuolo likes to blitz, and you cannot blitz Purdy. What they're going to have to try to do is knock the guys out off their roots. So he, because the San Francisco offense is timing, the passing game. It's all timing. So if I was devising a defense to stop him, I would be physical at the line with the receivers to knock them off the roots. And I would not blitz. I would hope I would get pressure with 4 guys, the linemen. And I would get my hands up. Because, Purdy gets balls knocked down every once in a while. So get hands in the passing lanes. If you could get pressure without blitzing, even better. But make sure you get your hands up and you're physical with the receivers.
Yeah, I agree. Another point, don't, and we were talking about this earlier today when we were at lunch, but Andy Reid can't fall in love with passing all game in this game. San Fran has shown their weakness, like we were talking about against the run in the playoffs. Detroit had over 150 yards, Green Bay close to the same. So I think Reid has to employ the run more often than he's used to and control the game more, especially what the point you made, Tommy, is, he doesn't, or Chalky, he doesn't have a whole lot of receivers that he can rely on. But San Fran's not great against the run, and they can run the ball, but Reid tends to not like to run the ball. But I think in a game like this is what they're going to have to do. Another thing is it can't be all Kelsey. I think they're going to have to get contributions from some of these guys you're talking about, Chalky, to win because, they cover their linebackers. San Fran covers tight ends pretty well, because they have Greenlaw, they have Warner. So leaving Mahomes to have to opt to throw to their weaker wide receivers that they have. So I can see more of a short passing game like they have employed, like you were saying, Jay, like check down Charlie with Mahomes, quick outs to Rice, dumps to Pacheco. And that's the kind of passing game I think they're going to have, especially if these linebackers can control Kelsey. And one other thing they need to do, I think they need to use a lot of play action, which Reid does do. The Niners are actually at the bottom of the NFL against play action plays, and Reid does a lot of that. So as we saw in last year's Super Bowl, especially, so they should use a lot of play action in this game. So that's my keys for Kansas City. If you guys want to chime in on those.
I mean, I don't Chalky. You have anything? It's not. Nothing
I mean, I think it
you
makes
could
you know,
refute?
I think it makes sense. I think again, it's almost 100% that Thuney is going to be out, so the offensive line is going to take a hit. So I think Mahomes making some plays with his legs like Purdy did against Detroit might might need to see some of that. But Andy Reid, even when, as we saw here, even when the run's working, he likes to get away from it. So that's going to be hard.
I mean,
to
I
be
will
that
say last
disciplined.
year, last year's Super Bowl, they did commit to running when it was working, and that flipped the game a little
Yep.
bit in the second half against the Eagles. They came out and where Mahomes had the ankle, and they ran successfully, and it did put the Eagles back on their heels. And so, you say what you want about Reed. He did do it a little bit last year, whether it was
The one
just by
time he
chance or-
did it just happened to be
yeah,
against
I mean,
the Eagles.
right? But to your point, yeah, history has shown that Reed could be stubborn to his game plan, and if the game plan calls for a pass happy offense, he sticks to that a lot. One thing about the McCaffrey run stuff, and it could be totally wrong. I never like that stat when you give the team's 12-1 when he runs over. Because it's the old
they have the lead,
they're going to
yeah.
run the ball when they have the lead, right?
Yeah.
So it's the whole Howard Eskin used to say it all the time. So I don't know if that's the point. Maybe it wasn't that chance, but my guess is that has a lot to do with it. They had the lead, and McCaffrey kept running the ball, and he got over 75 yards. Not that he ran to get the lead. Then that's why they won the game.
Yeah, I have
just
a more-
a
I have a more-
small.
I agree. I have a more relevant stat in that regard, but I agree with that.
So
Yeah. All right. So you want to? Yeah, you want to go?
Well, I was just
Mark
going to give a couple of my points. And in that regard with the running game, the Chiefs are 30th in the league against two running back sets, and the 49ers are first in the league. So I think that's huge. 49ers are going to be able to run the ball. It might not all be McCaffrey. I mean, Mitchell gets in and runs the ball well too when he's in. I mean, obviously McCaffrey is great, but they're going to be able to run the ball. I'm still not convinced that Andy Reid is going to, run the ball against San Fran, which you have to do. I mean, maybe he will, but I don't know. I mean, that's their weakness. Well, and if Reid has a hard head and doesn't run the ball, I think that's going to be an issue. The Chiefs have the better coach. They have the better quarterback. They have the better defense. They have the better special teams. And yet the line is San Francisco -2. So you know how I feel about that. And everybody and their mother is picking the Chiefs. They did a poll on ESPN, all those idiots on ESPN. Out of the 64 people, 49 of the 64 picked the Chiefs to win outright as an underdog. So, I think this is the classic case of. Oh, and one other stat. Don't let me forget this one. Vegas has lost 2 Super Bowls in the last 30 years. 2. They lost the 49ers Chargers Super Bowl in '94, and they lost the Giants. I'm getting a thumbs up, but they lost the Giants and Patriots Super Bowl, and I think it was 2007. 2. So 2 out of 30. So I'll be on the side of Vegas and pick the 49ers.
One thing too to get away from the actual game and more towards the line is, if you think about it, now this could go either way. There's we call Wong teasers. Guys listening, you guys know Wong teasers. You cross the 3, you cross the 7, you cross key numbers. The fact that the
They're
line
not
opens
afraid.
at 1
Right.
initially, like some books, MGM said they opened it, got crushed, 1.5 got crushed, moved it to 2.5. They don't move it to 3. They don't keep it at 1. The fact that they're not afraid for Kansas City's Wong, for those teasers to go from 2.5 to 8.5,
Yep.
leads me to believe that they think it's more of a chance that Niners win by 8.5 more than KC, losing by 2.5. However, I mean, when you do a teaser, you do have to match it up with another game, and being the Super Bowl, your options are limited to one NFL game. I
But
know
there's
you probably
there's certain places you could leave it open.
leave
You
it
can
open, right?
open-ended.
And I'm sure that the professional bettors would do stuff like that. But that was something that stood out to me too, is that they're not afraid to let it sit at 2.5, and it's been like that for a week and a half, 2 weeks now, that people could have just jumped on these teasers and made it 8.5. Another trend to me that Vegas is leaning towards. Not leaning, the Vegas is telling you the Niners. Again, not 100% because the game has to play itself out. But, on all things relative, the Niners are the team that is better, despite, to Jason's point, the better coach, the better quarterback, the better defense. So,
I mean,
just a
they have
quick-
them the favorite in every game this year. So, obviously it's not Vegas picking them to win, but they've made them the favorite in every
No,
game.
and
So
this was something we talked about 2 weeks ago with Baltimore, where Baltimore, the line was telling you Baltimore, and a couple of us said, "Wow, we can't go against Mahomes but that was against Jackson."
Yeah.
And is my point, not
And then
against.
this is the Super Bowl. Like, this is a different game than any other game this year. You know what I mean? Like, Vegas does not want to lose the Super Bowl. They'll get shut down. You know what I mean? Like, they'll take a bath if they lose the Super Bowl. So they, like Tommy said, I mean, seems like something shady.
Now, just quick, Jay, when you said, lost Super Bowl, was that just straight point spread money line, or does that include all the props and everything that people...
Not sure, but
Okay.
the stat is that they have only lost 2 Super Bowls in 30 years.
'Cause I know a lot of times they say, like, if the betting is relatively close, they don't really care because there's so much other... Like, they don't want the safety. Like when it's just safety, like early or whatever, like, people bet the yes on that and it kills them if that happens. But
I mean, this is your classic in the regular season, the pros versus Joes game. No matter how you shape it up, this is the Joes are on Kansas City, and I could just use my circle of people that I talk to at work. They all want Kansas City, every single one of them. And when you mention the Niners, they give you, Mahomes, Reed, Taylor Swift. I mean, so it's the classic. Again, doesn't mean the Niners are definitely winning this game, but it's the classic Joes versus pros types of game. Mika, you didn't. Did you have more, or are you ready to say what you think in an outcome?
First, before I get to that, I mean, I think for me, the more of the reason, and it might be because the public thinks the same way or whatever, but for more of the reason I'm leaning, and I wouldn't bet this game if it wasn't the Super Bowl because I think it's that close, but it's more of how they got there to me. Like, so we talked about it in last week's podcast. Kansas City beat the best offense in the AFC in Miami handily. They beat the best quarterback left in the playoffs in Josh Allen in the second game. They beat the best defense in the AFC in Baltimore, and they were underdogs in both of those games. And San Fran could be out of the playoffs. I mean, let's face it. I mean, they did get lucky in both of these games.
But Mika, I'm glad you said this because I said it, of course. You said it a couple weeks. What was our knock on the Niners?
What was the knock on the Niners?
What was the knock on the Niners? They're front runners. How do they react when they get punched in the face? Shanahan's record going in the fourth when they're losing. All these things we said happened to them, right? In 2 games. And what was the outcome of both those games? They won.
Both those games,
so you're looking at it as a negative. Maybe you should be looking at it as a positive. The only negative we had against the Niners was that, and they overcame that.
Plus, the Niners have not played anywhere close to their A game yet. You know what I mean? Like, if they play their A game.
They haven't, but I mean, are they going to walk into the Super Bowl and play their A game against probably the best defense they faced in the playoffs?
I mean, again, I will point to Las Vegas. Like, does Las Vegas not know everything you just said?
They're going to get on the field and they're going to play the game, and we'll see. But I'm just looking at it from that point of view. Like, what team is playing better going into these playoffs? And obviously the Chiefs are playing better and they played better competition. And they have all those things you said. They have the better quarterback. They have the better coach. Defense, yeah, they're better, but they're not that much better than San Fran. San Fran's got better rushes, that has better rushing attack. San Fran's probably got a better offensive line. So there's other things, that we're talking about here. That's an evenly matched game. I mean, that's why these two teams are here. But I wouldn't bet the game if it wasn't the Super Bowl. It's the last game to bet for the year, and of course we're all going to bet it. But I wouldn't bet it normally. I think this is a very evenly matched game, and the line says so. So anyway, I'll get to these other points here. On the San Fran side, I think Purdy has to not have the start he's had in these last two games, and I can't see a Chiefs team making the same mistakes that like Green Bay or Detroit did, which caused them not to win the games. And with the decisions they made with coaching and Green Bay not capitalizing with points when they had their opportunity in the first half against Green Bay, I don't see this Chiefs team making those same mistakes. So I think he really needs to come out strong in the first half. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's hard to refute that you need the quarterback of a starting team on the Super Bowl to play well in the first half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not coming back 24-7 at halftime against Kansas City if it gets to that.
Right.
If it's 7-6 or 10-7, that's close enough, But
I mean, and arguably the Packers and the Lions both had better offenses than the Chiefs. Chiefs' offense is garbage right now.
Yeah, they're bad.
It's bad.
at some of the skill positions, they certainly did. At least there's lines with receivers, but I was, when you have the best quarterback in the game, that does make a difference. But
It does, but he scored 0 points.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't, besides him running around for 5 minutes and throwing the ball up to Kelsey and Kelsey making a great catch, Mahomes didn't really do anything that was, besides not turn the ball over, like we said, that won that game for him. If Mahomes ain't on the back of his jersey, you would have not even talked about the quarterback.
No, but what did you say right there?
Kansas City.
Didn't turn the ball over, right? What did Love do twice in the fourth quarter that led directly to San Francisco points that won the game? Turn the ball over. So, not the last one was the end of the game, but he doesn't turn the ball over. Maybe Green Bay wins the game. So,
yeah, no question. But Goff didn't turn it. I mean, I know Gibbs did, but Goff did. But again, if Mahomes isn't, the back of that jersey doesn't say Mahomes in that game against the Ravens, you're not talking about the quarterback at all in that game. You're talking about how Jackson couldn't move the football and Kansas City's defense won the football game for him.
Yeah. Mahomes had a very good first half and was a game manager in the second half. He just didn't make mistakes, and they held onto the ball enough and let Baltimore make mistakes.
True. Yeah. I think they need to let other offensive players when the Chiefs hurt them beside Kelsey. He's obviously going to get his yards, but he's been pretty ridiculous in these playoffs. And if they can hold him like under 7 catches, hold him out of the end zone, I think the Niners win if that happens. Because, there's just not enough firepower in the rest of their offense to do anything else unless Reed decides he's going to run the ball and play that kind of game. Aforementioned McCaffrey's yards, we talked about that. Here's something I think is understated. They can't miss makeable field goals in this game. And, we've seen Moody miss a few in these playoffs. He's a bit shaky. And the game could come down to a big field goal. So the Niners can't afford to leave points on the board when there's opportunities in the kicking game. Because it could be a field goal game and it could come down to that. And I think this is just more of a funny one. Have the ball last. Don't give Mahomes an opportunity with a game that's within reach at the end of the game, if it's possible, to beat you. Because I think if he does get the opportunity and they're down by less than 3, I think he's going to win the game. I think he'll roll down the field and win the game for you.
All right. With that said, are you ready to? I mean, you already alluded to you're leaning on the Kansas City side. Is it?
Yep.
Is it a 3-point game? Is it a last score game? Is it what are we thinking?
It could. I could. I mean, I think it could come down to that. It could come down to tie game. Mahomes has the ball with 2 minutes left, and all he needs is a field goal or something like that, and that's what happens. But I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be more defensive than people think, and I think both teams are going to run the ball more than people think. It's not going to be like a shootout. So I'm going to go under 2, and I'm going to give Kansas City a 23-20 edge in the game.
All right. And Jason, did you have more points, or do you want to just give out the prediction?
I mean, the other point I had was the way Spagnuolo likes to blitz. And Meeker brought it up, and I reiterated that. So, and I said what I thought the Chiefs needed to do to stop the Niners defense, but offense. No, I mean, I'm obviously going to pick the 49ers to win the game. I'm leaning lower score also. I mean, if I have to give a score, I'll give you 23-20. Is that what Meeker said? Meeker
Same score, but
he
backwards.
was,
Yeah.
but he Kansas City.
Other side. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 23-20 San Francisco. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, not much more to add. So I'm on the Niners as well. I mean, again, the line leads me in that direction, and I to my point with the Wong, I could see this game being more lopsided in the Niners' favor than Kansas City winning the game. Put it that way. But I do have. I'll give out the score. I have Niners 24, Kansas City 13. So I don't think it's a high-scoring game as well. I think Kansas City is gonna struggle offensively, and I think they're specifically. And when I get into props, I think they're going to struggle in the red zone, which they have throughout most of the season, including the playoffs. Where last game they were better, but they did, I think, turnover on downs on the one, or fumble the ball. I think fumble. Yeah, he fumbled on the goal line. So I think that could play a pretty big part of it. So 24-13 Niners. All right. Anything else before we jump into some of our props?
Just
for
one
the Super Bowl.
One thing I was thinking of as we were talking, and when we say Vegas, sometimes we really literally mean Vegas. At times it's just gambling in general. But this is traditionally one of, I guess, between this and March Madness, like the biggest weekend, like for them. And I'm just curious, since the Super Bowl is actually in Vegas, if all like the guy trips that usually go out there, I mean, hotels are jacked up even more, and you have all the NFL media. I wonder if the handle there's going to be any difference in the handle, because some of the people coming in town for the game might not be going to the casino to place the bets, and it's harder to sign up for actual like mobile betting
it depends.
in Nevada. So
it depends what you're saying when you say Vegas, like in the state of Nevada, because MGM has apps in Pennsylvania, New Jersey.
I'm talking about the actual like casino, what they consider the casino handle of like MGM in Nevada. Let's just say.
I mean, I would assume hasn't handle gone down since states have legalized web gambling, internet gambling, and stuff. Anyway, I mean, I would assume.
On the actual Super Bowl, I don't know year over year. I mean, Nevada is still perennially top, the second or third behind like Jersey, and I don't know if New York now is up there, but. PA's third or fourth.
Second. I think Jersey's first.
Jersey's been first, right? So
I would assume the legalization has took away handle, to begin with. But I mean, it's possible that it could still be less because of the Super Bowl being in Las Vegas. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't. MGM doesn't care whether it's placed in Nevada or New Jersey. Probably it's better on the mobile, because they probably even make even more money with kickback or taxes or whatever it is. So, all right, let's get into props. I know traditionally in the past we've given out like 10 props. We had a contest. By the next week we forgot about it. We talk it. We don't even care who won. So we're just giving out props. You have 10, you give 10. You got 7, you give 7. You can give a prop and do a brief talk. You give it. If somebody else wants to jump in, we still got about a half hour to talk it. So, we don't have to go super quick. I would just say one guy gives all his props out, and then, next move on to the next guy and do a conversation, as we go. We'll go in the same order we started with the conversation. So, Chalky, if you had some props that you wanted to, and they could be the goofy props, they could be the color Gatorade, they could be MVP. These are props are usually fun, but they also need, you want to make them profitable.
Nothing too goofy, because the state of Pennsylvania limits some of them, and I didn't go on Bovada to see what they're doing. But so I'll just MVP. Only person on the Chiefs I would put a bet on is Kelsey at 12-1. If he has a big game, I think some of the media will lean towards the whole, oh my God, Taylor Swift, and so 12-1, whatever.
Doesn't the fans have like 20% of that?
Is that what it is? I mean, I know a lot of his NFL media, but I don't know if there's any like half-ass media that gets a vote like for this kind of stuff. Anyway, and then that's the only Chiefs prop bet I have. Everything else is gonna be San Francisco, and you'll see why. but two other MVP bets I would make: Samuel at 20-1 and Kittle at 60-1. Touchdown scores: Debo to score plus 135, Kittle to score plus 170. Debo over 16.5 rushing yards, that's minus 125. Debo over 78.5 total combined rushing receiving yards, that's minus 115. Mitchell over 4.5 rushing yards, that's minus 105. And
Wow, that's crazy.
I know.
4.5.
that was almost like they want
That's
you to
like
bet
he's not
the
getting a
under.
carry.
Yeah, I know, right.
He's good,
Yeah.
Mitchell.
That's
Good.
crazy.
And then Chase Young over a quarter of a sack. That's plus 250.
That's and that's a half a sack. Because you can't get
A quarter. So, yeah. And just, in general, I'm counting on, Snead is probably going to shadow Ayuk or McCaffrey depending on where they line them up. So I think with, moving Kittle out of the slot and Debo, whether it's at the backfield or using some motion with them, I think those will open up some opportunities for them. And so that's just kind of my thinking behind going heavy with them and MVP touchdown and yards.
Cool. All right. I'll jump in here. So I had 8 to 10, including MVP. So I'll give those out quickly. And it was Debo at 20-1. I thought that was pretty high as well. And then Debo anytime touchdown at plus 130. So I'll throw them out. Now I'll give out the rest of my props. Now the rest of them are like truly props, and it has to do with red zone. It has to do with some of the stuff we talked. So TD red zone percentage for the Chiefs under 59.5 is plus 115. So throughout the year they were 52%. They're 46% for the playoffs now. They were 66% last week, but a much smaller sample size. So that seems a little overinflated to me. So at plus money, I'll take it. And that's obviously scored touchdown versus not scoring or a field goal. Mahomes red zone interception, plus 550. So again, struggling in the red zone. Maybe they force something. You want to say Mahomes not going to make a mistake, but hey, plus 550. Kansas City lost the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay because their defensive line got tons and tons of pressure. Niners can win by putting pressure on Mahomes, so I got sacks over 1.5 at minus 155 for the Niners. To go along with their red zone inefficiency, Butker over 1.5 field goals at minus 120. I'll save this one for last. Second half spread, Niners minus 1.5 plus 120. So we talked about the Niners as a second half team. Now that could be tough because that has to do with they're up 25 at halftime. They might not cover a 1.5 point spread at second half, but and then Kansas City total points under 14.5 is plus 575. So another one that I like. Now here's my one fun one. Jordan Spieth total birdies in the fourth round, so the final round of the Waste Management, versus total field goals made in the Super Bowl. I'm taking field goals to have more than Spieth birdies at plus 155. So I did not look. That was on DraftKings. I did not look. I'm assuming if Spieth misses the cut, that becomes a voided bet. I would assume. I can't imagine they would pay you out on it, but he's probably going to make the cut. But yeah, that goes along with the inefficiencies, and there's going to be some field goals in this game, and maybe Spieth chokes in the Waste Management. All right, Meeker, some props.
All right, since I think KC is going to win by 3, I'm going to move the line to KC minus 2.5, and I'm going to go under 46 in a parlay. So I'm moving both lines, and that's at plus 305. I like that. I like Pacheco to get in the end zone. That's kind of like, chalky pick, but that's minus 125.
Really, you should throw that in on that parlay as well, and just.
Yeah, I'll probably use that in some sort of parlay with some of these other things I'm about to say. And that's Purdy under 20.5 completions. I think the Niners are going to run the ball a lot. And Purdy, I don't know what the stat was, but I think the Niners are maybe last in the NFL in throwing the ball in a game. Is that the truth? But, so we'll go with what history tells us. Noah Gray over 13.5 yards receiving. That's really one catch, So if they're going to bracket Kelsey and Gray's in a game in a double tight end set, he might get a catch. So I'm going to take a chance on that. And Purdy over 12.5 yards rushing. I think that's a gimme. I think there's got to be at least one play that Purdy makes with his legs. 12.5 yards. Usually when quarterback scrambles, it's usually more than that. So I think that's a good one. That's minus 125. Tight end to win MVP. So we're not picking either Kittle or Kelsey, but you got both of them, and that's plus 900. And then in this order, who leads in passing? Mahomes, receiving, Ayuk, rushing, McCaffrey. That's a plus 1,400 if you play all three of them. And more field goals made than touchdowns in the game. That's a plus 400. And if you want to pick a tie, like there's as many field goals made as touchdowns, that's a plus 800. I might bet both of those things.
Okay. All right, Jason, you got some time to give out props. So you take as long as you need here.
Yeah, I expanded mine to 10. So I absolutely, and I can't find this specific bet anywhere, but I was able to parse it out and make separate bets on it. I swear to you, the first 49ers offensive play of the game is going to be a quick screen to Debo, because you're going to get Purdy an easy completion. You're going to get Debo into the game, a physical, quick hitter. Hopefully Debo gets you 6-7 yards or 8 yards out of it. I wish I could find that bet.
How did you spot? You did like first play pass.
So
You said you were able to like figure out ways.
Yeah, so I did Purdy first pass completion, which is
right.
It's not a good. It was like -2.
No. Yeah. Right.
I did Debo
first
reception in the first quarter. So I did those two things.
Right,
I couldn't
gotcha.
find the specific.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Play. It's going to be a screen pass
to Chalky's
Debo.
point, that might be like a Bovada type of. You can find that on like a Bovada, but maybe not on like PA DraftKings.
I just because everybody's going to say, "Oh, it's McCaffrey's going to get 100 carries and this and that." They want Purdy to get into the game with an easy completion. They want to get the ball in the Debo's hands. Telling you,
yeah, man. And we talked about as much as McCaffrey is instrumental in that offense. When Debo went out against Green, you saw how the offense could
beast.
sputter, and how much of the game plan revolves around Debo.
He's an absolute beast. Sure. He's an absolute beast. He's hard to bring down. So, I also bet the field goals total for both teams to be over 3.5. I think it's going to be a lot of field goals in the game. They have Purdy listed as 31.5 pass attempts, which is insane because I think he's only passed that a couple times during the year. I don't see that happening at all.
Well, that's what Meeker was saying, right?
He did completions, but I did pass attempts.
They throw the ball less than any team in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I think that's pointing to maybe not because
they're favorite. I was going to say if they're trailing, but they're favorite.
If they're
so
losing, you would think he would throw the ball. I don't think they're going to be losing. So. I also did Moody over 7.5 points because I think he'll have at least 2 field goals, and I think the 49ers will score at least 2 touchdowns. So that's 8 points right there. This was a crazy stat I found. The 49ers have not gone for 2-point conversion at all this year, and the Chiefs have gone for 1 the whole year. So under 2-point conversions, bet that. I didn't write the odds down. I'm sorry about this.
What was the under/over though? Was it 1.5?
Yeah, a half.
Half. Okay.
Yeah, it's basically yes or no. It's an attempt or a complete. Not an attempt. Right?
I think I did an attempt. I have to go back and look, but I don't think either team's going for 2. Which when we didn't get our blocks yet, but when we get our blocks, we have to hope we have 0, 3, or 7.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's circumstance. That's the team's down a certain. You're gonna be like, if they're gonna go for 2 here, but you never know how that's gonna play out.
Yeah, if it's a lower scoring game, odds are it's probably just going to be
Andy Reid's math doesn't always work out. Like there's situations where you should go for 2 to get to the 9-point lead, like last year against Eagles, and he just doesn't try it.
Now I know if a popular bet is for over 2.5 people to attempt to pass in the Super Bowl. I went under 2.5.
Yeah, that's
Mahomes
traditionally under, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's always a
Unless
popular
there's a
bet.
trick
But
play. I mean,
no, but I'm saying like if you go through the history of the Super
Yeah.
Bowl outside, then the Eagles Super Bowl made
The
it
Eagles
like
had it,
everybody. Yeah.
Right. And then I'm gonna do Kittle touchdown. I think the Chiefs D-backs are tough. They might lock down Ayuk and Debo in the game. So I think Kittle will have an opportunity. Obviously McCaffrey's going to score probably, but I'm going to do Kittle touchdown. And I'm doing Purdy MVP. I mean, listen, imagine that story. You know these writers want to go for a story. Mr. Irrelevant is now MVP of the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? I know people are always pointing to, well, it's going to be McCaffrey or Debo, and I think the writers would want to give it to Purdy. And I think Tommy said it before. They're kind of told lean towards.
I mean, I have a guy that votes. I know somebody that votes, and he
lean towards the quarterback.
I remember texted him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you can't go against Brady in this Super Bowl." And it was like, but his stats don't back up that you should go with Brady.
Right.
So you can, and they have. But usually it's an outlier. It's a wide receiver that has 15 catches or, So if McCaffrey has 4 touchdowns, then yes, he's going to get the MVP. But if it's close, they lean towards quarterback. Always.
So I'm going to lean towards Purdy MVP.
Yeah, one of the props I was looking for, and I couldn't find it on DraftKings, and I may have just missed it. Something around challenges. Both these coaches are bad at challenges, similar to the 2-point. They don't challenge Reed misses on even challenging. Shanahan missed against the Eagles last year in an obvious challenge. So they not only aren't good at calling a challenge, they're also bad at when they convert challenges. So something around the unders on challenges would be another one, if you can find it. I think DraftKings should have had it. Like I said, I had trouble looking for it.
I was kind of disappointed in DraftKings menu. Maybe I just didn't search right. There's a lot of things that I had to bet on other applications because DraftKings didn't offer it.
Yeah, I don't.
Or
I mean,
couldn't find it.
It's hard. Yeah, I agree. Like I used to like the old days. You get a prop sheet, remember, and you were able.
Yeah.
But now there's so many. It's hard to find like props if you don't go into the right bucket that you're looking for.
That's
you
one
don't
place
think
where
it's something-
I thought Bovada always had a better layout because it was just so much easier to find the bets than
Yeah,
draft. You got to click the right thing up top on DraftKings and then
right.
get the right subcategory to hope you
Dude,
have it lined
they
up.
make all their money because they make their money in popular. People click on the popular props.
Yeah, they put
and
them
just
up
go
top
down
and
to
just
Joe
go-
Public popular. Right.
Or here's a parlay. Here's a 5-way parlay.
Or
and
here's
it's
a
like,
parlay that we're giving
Yeah.
out. Yeah. All right. Any thoughts as we sign off here for the Super Bowl preview show? Any last minute thoughts, Jason, Chalky, Meeker, before we wrap it up?
hopefully now that the Sod father has retired, they won't be playing on ice this year.
Yeah, well, I saw the Niners were complaining about the practice field
They had a practice
over
at
at
UNLV.
UNLV, or they had to because the practice field's bad. Okay.
Yeah. But
Well,
Yeah.
no, they're the visiting team, so the Chiefs got to use the Raiders facility, and the 49ers had to use.
UNLV, right? And that was the field they were trying to say was not.
was
bad.
not in
Yeah.
great shape or whatever.
Yeah.
But both teams stay like it's nice distance from like the heart of Vegas. So I'm surprised 49ers could have used University of Nevada wouldn't have been that far, I don't think, and they probably maintained it better than UNLV. But
Well, as long as no one got hurt today, because I had heard that today was like the last real.
What
practice.
was the issue? It was like sod coming up or slippery or
what they had to do was they had to put turf on top of artificial surface.
yeah,
Oh wow.
So, and basically, turf is usually on top of dirt and
Yeah,
rocks and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So it was making it. The footing was terrible. So, and plus it's outside, and Vegas has had terrible weather.
Yeah, it's been chilly, right? I think
Has
I
it?
did see that.
and rain.
And is the game is the Raiders a dome? I don't
Yeah.
even know. So all right, so it don't make a difference.
But the Raiders' practice facility is indoors, so didn't bother the Chiefs. The Chiefs.
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
care
yeah.
about it,
And
so-
why are the Chiefs the home team? Is that just an alternating
Every
schedule?
other
How
year.
does
Yeah, it's the
Eagles were the
rotation.
home team last year. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Any other thoughts? Are we signing off? Episode. What do we have? 93. Episode 93. Super Bowl 58. How we thinking? Have a good night.
good night.
Best of luck.